we're starting in a moment. We're back to the what do these parts? We've talked about all of these. So what do these parts of the cerebral cortex do? Let's repeat. Here's the premotor cortex. Here's the primary sensory. So here's the central sulcus. Input from all of the sensory information coming from your muscles and your gut and your joints and all of the pain and heat and pressure. And information is sent up the spinal cord into the ascending tracts and the descending tracts. And that information is sent through the thalamus. All that sensory information ends up in the post central gyrus, which is the primary sensory cortex, and that information is analyzed, and higher brain function in the primary motor cortex, the precentral gyrus, is going to send out information that stimulates the appropriate muscles for you to walk, talk, crawl on your belly like a reptile. So the higher processing of the sensory information from all over the body, all over the skin, all over the digestive tract, the bladder, the respiratory system, the eyes, the ears, all that information is sent. And back here is where the visual cortex was, where the information that hit the retina came from. Here's the auditory cortex, where the information processed by your inner ear is sent here and to be analyzed. And it's just incredible how fast it works. It's just incredible. So all animals can hear, most of them. Many of them have brains just like ours. That's why we look at the sheep brain. Okay, hemispheric lateralization. So there's usually the left takes care of speech and interpretation, language-based skills. Usually the right side takes care of spatial relationships and logical analysis. All the things we can do with our brain is taking care of this specialization of function in the left cerebral hemisphere and the right cerebral hemisphere. So if you look again at a top view in this diagram, you can see that the information from the eyes is going to go down the optic nerve into which is called can't think of the name right now, the crossing of the optic nerves. We'll get to that in a minute. So notice that you have lateralization. You have writing, auditory function, language, mathematical circulation, analysis of touch, motor commands for executive actions, spatial and visual analysis, the visual cortex in the right and left hemispheres. So your speech functions are on the left, your analysis of touch and hearing are on both sides, but functions are divided and sent to various parts of the brain. So there are specialized functions in the brain that take care of analysis of touch, for instance, spatial visualization. So when you look at a picture of a house, you see the three-dimensional structure. You can see where the windows are. You can see the walls of the corners of the house and so on. So you can visualize also, I'll say, another person's face. You know how the location of the ears or behind on the side of the skull, and the nose has a certain projection, the lips have a certain projection, and so on. So that's all spatial visualization that we can do in coordination with the visual cortex. Here's the auditory cortex on both sides, which analyzes sound input into the eardrum, hitting the eardrum, and then through the middle ear and the inner ear. Okay, we all have brain waves. I'm not going to ask you any particular, but if you record electrical activity on the surface of the skull, you can pick up all these various waves that are generated by brain activity. So we talked about nuclei, and they lie deep within the central white matter of the brain. They control muscle tone, movements, and rhythmic movements. So you have, for instance, the thalamus here. Next to it, you have the lentiform nucleus, which are cell bodies in the white matter of the brain. You have the amygdaloid body and so on. So these nuclei are involved in what? They muscle tone, learned movements, and rhythmic movements like walking. If you take a cross section of the brain, you can see these other nuclei, the amygdaloid body, and so on. The corpus callosum, I mentioned, connects both the right and the left hemispheres. So these nuclei are involved in walking, control of walking, muscle tone, and have specific functions that they coordinate with the rest of the brain, so on. Okay, then we have a limbic system. And so let's take a break there. So we'll take about a 10-minute break here, and I'll go ahead and shut this recording off. So if anybody has to go to the restroom, including me,